Hello and welcome to the Conscious Eating Evolution series. I'm Karina, a conscious eating catalyst and soul relationship guide, and have created this series to give you a more holistic overview around the power of food and your personal choice, so you feel more enabled and empowered to make healthier and more mindful choices for yourself and this planet. And today I have a wonderful guest, Elena Wilkins, with whom we're going to talk about hormonal health and autoimmune disease. And I welcome you, Elena, for being part of the series.
Thank you so much. I'm super excited to be here, and I can't wait to share all the goodness with your listeners.
Yes, I'm super excited as well. And I want to shortly read your bio. And Elena is the founder of 360 Degrees Impact Health Program. She shows women how to uncover and address their thyroid and hormonal or hormone disorders. She's a speaker, coach, and author, and is a popular guest on radio, TV, and podcasts. Her book, Sensual Health, shows women how to tap into the healing power within themselves to cure the incurable. That sounds pretty amazing. Yeah. So, I want to get a little bit more into you first and foremost, and really give us a kind of insight on what led you to really becoming specialized in this field.
Absolutely, and it depends how many hours you have in a day, but I'll try to put it in about 3 minutes span, I promise. So for me, it began on a very personal level. So I know a lot of health coaches, specialists, they start off with, it's a passion. For me, health was not a passion until it became a thing that I needed for myself. Mm-hmm. So I was in my 20s, ready to get married, and my then fiance and husband now, he ended up with 3 brain surgeries. And so I became the primary caregiver. So in the process, while saving his life, I neglected mine. Before you knew it, I was gaining weight. My cycle became irregular, and it went basically to hell from there. By the time I was getting married, my doctor said the only way to regulate your menses is to put you on birth control. Biggest mistake ever. It made me sicker. I gained a lot of weight. A lot of symptoms started to pile up. And what happened is, it took me actually 5 years of getting worse for somebody to finally say, okay, you're sick enough for us to diagnose you. But for 5 years, doctor to doctor, specialist to specialist, nothing. And finally, when I got diagnosis in about 2007, my doctor told me you have hypothyroidism, you have a pituitary tumor, and by the way, you cannot get pregnant naturally, which I really wanted at that time because I was already in my 30s. Mm-hmm. He said, unless you're taking these 2 medications, he gave me 2 scripts. And by then I was able to save my husband's life with nutrition. So I was like, well, if it worked for him, could it possibly work for me? So I took the prescriptions and I said, thank you, but I will back to you with these prescriptions. I will never basically shot them, never fill them up, and I'll come back and I'll have reversed it. And the doctor, of course, said that's not possible. So that began my odyssey into discovering how I can heal my body, which, doctors tell us we can't, although everybody always talks about, cure for cancer, cure for this. But then when you talk to doctors, they say it's impossible to do. Mm-hmm. So I will never forget that day I sat in my car. It was a very cold December morning, and I cried and I said, no way, this is not going to be my destiny. And so I spent the next year, Karina, researching. If you talk about 10,000 hours of becoming a specialist in something, mm-hmm. I think I doubled that and then some, because I used to spend 5 to 6 hours a day just researching, reading. And this was before Google. This was before there were a lot of things there. So libraries and periodicals and magazines, whatever you can imagine. Long story short,
the old-fashioned and real way.
Old-fashioned pen and paper in hand.
Right.
There was a little bit. I was the first person to ever actually publish an article back when people used to use Blogger for doing blogs. On how to reverse hypothyroidism naturally. And I used to be like, if you ever Googled it, that was my first thing. Since then, I moved my blog a couple of times, so it does not score as high, but that was the article. So that's how this happened for me. When I finally, I cured myself of hypothyroidism. My numbers, I have labs to prove it. My doctor was like, I don't know what you did, but keep doing it. And I said, hey, doc, do you want to know so you can help others? He's like, nah, just keep doing what you're doing. Which was, that's what happens, and that was okay. But I started to receive emails from women from all over the world. Like, tell us more. How did you do it? And eventually I'm like, okay, back to school we go. And for me, this is how it happened. Because I lived through hell of suffering. I had over 20 symptoms. but nothing was helping. Then eventually when I wanted to become a mother, I lived through the pain, the depression of not being able to have what I wanted and seeing others much younger than me doing it, and women who didn't want to have kids get pregnant. I was like, oh my God, what's wrong with me? So I went through all that pain and eventually cracked the code, did it naturally, no medications, only maybe 2 supplements that I used to get there. The rest of it was food and lifestyle. And so for me, it became a passion. I thought, heck, if I can save another woman, another Elena or Karina from suffering like this, I'm going to dedicate my life to doing it. And so that's my backstory to how I ended up doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, it's the suffering first that really leads us towards, our greatest strength, and then the capability gives us the capability to help others.
Indeed. It gives you the empathy and the compassion.
Yes, especially through that.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Awesome. So what is actually the cause of hormonal imbalance and autoimmune disease? So if you found the cure, you needed to find what was the underlying current that actually brought it into the physical.
Absolutely. Without knowing the root cause, what happens, and this is what happens in the medical industry. And mind you, just a big disclaimer, I don't hate doctors. I think there's a place for doctors for medication, for surgeries, but not for chronic conditions. Acute conditions, absolutely. They saved my husband's life. And if I needed to have my leg amputated now, I'd be going and seeking doctor's help. But the medical industry right now, what they're failing is they don't understand what causes them. So what we are really good at in the medical industry is they look at your numbers and they know how to tinker with them. And they look at, how to cut out a physical organ and get rid of it, but it doesn't solve the why the problem is happening. So this has been in the beginning, I was like, oh, diet is everything, because that's how I started to get better. And certainly whole foods, plant-based, I love it. But I also worked with a lot of vegans who come to me sick, and I'm saying, okay, what else? So there's not one big thing, Karina, but what I've noticed is the whole person that makes or breaks health. So I have women, when they come to me, they take a long survey and they tell me about what are they eating, what are they taking, how are they sleeping, how is their personal life, so love life or sleep or stress management. The biggest one that I find, believe it or not, is the relationship with yourself. This is where a lot of things are either broken or made, because imagine if you have even an animal and you beat on it and you say you're horrible, eventually the animal becomes angry and reacts back to you in the right? But as women especially, we do that a lot to ourselves. You're not beautiful enough, you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you're not. In most of the conversations, and now we scientifically know, about 70 to 80% of your thoughts are redundant. For years you've thought the same thought. They actually condition your body to become what it is. So if you keep telling yourself you're ugly and you're horrible, your body creates that ugly and horrible. But diet has a huge, huge role to play with that too. So we know that acid forming diets and foods, they create inflammation in the body. With inflammation, what happens is your body breaks down. It goes into fight or flight or freeze mode. And when it's there, it suspends all of the other processes in your body, and they're not essential. So if you think about you running away from a lion, right? You're not going to think about, oh, are my hormones balanced? Is my estrogen on point? Is my TSH?
No, you're in survival mode.
Let's get the heck out of here just to preserve my life. And in human body, this is what happens in modern day America, modern day Europe, and people where we live, is we are constantly stressed. Is the dietary stress, the relationship stress, the financial stress. And before you know it, you're on the outside, no, I meditate and I'm cool. But underneath it is the current of stress. And this is what does it. And so there's multiple things. It's mostly doctors will never look at that. So considering that over 80% of people who go to medical offices end up there being because of stress, only 3% of them will ever receive any help related to how to manage stress. The rest of them will be like me. There's 2 prescriptions or 5 prescriptions. Here's what you do. Or maybe we just cut it out because you no longer need the body organ, which is, of course, never resolves the problem. So the root cause is finding it out. And most of the times, if you came to me right now and says, Elena, what is my problem? We're going to have a long conversation. I don't care about what your numbers are saying, frankly. And I know how to read them. I spent the last 10 years looking at people's labs and being able to interpret them. They're telling me to what's happening, but they're not telling me why it's happening. So the biggest conversation is to start looking, how do I think about myself? How do I relate to myself? Amazingly, Karina, what I found recently, this was my big aha moment. I actually sat down and I tallied my clients what kind of background they had. Most of the women, up to about 70 or so percent, have had some kind of emotional, physical, or sexual trauma that they're coming with.
Mhm.
So illnesses are not born in isolation. And most women out there right now running, which supplement do I take or what diet do I eat? And none of them really go, what happened to me when I was 6 or 16?
Mhm.
What's happening in my relationships right now?
Mhm.
And then saying, ooh, how I relate to myself actually shows how I relate to food, because here's what happened to our food, right? We look at food now as either a way to reward or punish ourselves. Oh my God, I'm going to lose 20 pounds. So I'm going to cut out carbs and, eat more fat, eat more protein, or the other way. So we swing back and forth, and we have this unhealthy relationship with food.
Absolutely.
Instead of going sitting down like my 6-year-old does now, she sits down and goes, mommy, it is so good. When have you seen an adult do it? Happens in my family all the time. We have these orgasmic moments, but most people will look at their food as either punishment or a coping mechanism.
Mm.
So I think that most of our autoimmune conditions, and I can go deeper into that, but hormonal imbalances and at large, a lot of health issues start there. Now, when you give time and you add more things to the mix, yeah, they all play a role, but we all have a trigger point somewhere.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, like I love to really look into our food or see food really as a form of nourishment.
Yeah.
And as you said it, like the way how our relationship looks like or is often like seen in the world is, it is one aspect where it's reflected on how we treat ourselves and I relate to the world.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
When I talk to somebody, I'm working with a client right now, and she had a very traumatic past. And she came and we fixed her diet first. And she's like, still not losing weight. It's not working. Why is it, Elena?
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, let's talk about it. And as we started to dig in, here's the truth that came up, Karina. And I'm going to change some of the facts so that, my client is not identifiable.
Mm-hmm.
But her relationship with food started with her mother
Mm-hmm.
teaching her, you don't want to be fat like the other girls. You need to watch out this or you're going to become this. And so what she's done is from very early on, she started to see food as something that is bad and that will harm her and that will not give her a good relationship with her mother, because her mother had certain standards to live up to.
Mm-hmm.
So her relationship with, even with now, is like, I don't want to eat it unless I absolutely have to.
Mm-hmm.
It's a scary place to be, because this is a romantic relationship. We love on it. It loves us back.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, like from your perspective, you have already given like insight definitely that health is not just about food, and and I went through this like a similar journey in that way. I had very severe dermatitis, and because like there was no answer for me in like modern Western medicine, and I just didn't want to cope with it anymore, and I started changing my eating habits. And that was my starting point. And I got really frustrated during the course of it because I was eating so ridiculously clean and I was still like the condition wouldn't go away.
Yeah.
And so that was when I then had to open up to, a more holistic perspective and a holistic way of feeling and looking into my past and getting rid of other toxins within, relationships, how I'm living right now, relating to other people, like where I'm not loving myself. But
Right.
yeah, but what is it like, what is your perspective on like how important is really the aspect of food that can support us and aid us in, curing those diseases or bringing, a better, better way of living a life back into our.
Yeah, I love that question. And I love that, the series that you're doing is conscious eating. So it's not just eating, right?
No.
So we have to stop and examine what conscious is. Conscious means really on purpose, being fully aware.
Mm-hmm.
So as humans, we like to let's come up with a formula. Food is, 50%. I don't believe that. I believe that everything is 100% important.
Mm-hmm.
So if right now I have a great relationship with my husband, my daughter, and I live well, I just spoke actually with somebody right before this call. She has everything going for her, but she's sick.
Mm-hmm.
So apparently relationships alone cannot solve it. right? And food alone cannot solve it. So we think about it, the importance, I think, is 100% important. What you put in your body is just like the air that you breathe. You're either breathing in toxins or you're breathing in life. And given there's a lot of toxicity in the air now, so that means your inside of your body is the machine that needs to fight the free radicals and overcome the cancer cells and everything else. And that ability comes only when your body is fueled by the best of food. If that is not there, then the outside will overtake you in no time. So to me, to eat healthy food is like to breathe the best possible air, to drink the best possible water. It's everything. I know that in the weight loss industry, we're thinking about the perfect days and the off days, right? Okay, so once a week, we're going to have an off day. So what this tells me is 52 days out of the year, we're going to, on purpose, abuse our bodies. That's almost 2 months out of the year we're going to be imperfect so that we can feel good about ourselves. What I propose is that let's embrace the food so much that we see that as a constant regenerator of our health. And that way there's a romantic relationship. Now, I'm not saying I'll never have a piece of cake, but it's probably going to happen about twice a year as opposed to once a week. And for the rest of it, every time I take a bite of food, and yesterday I was being lazy. Instead of making salad, I just took romaine leaves, sprinkle a little salt on them. My daughter and I were just eating them. With that, we are taking in nutrients and oxygen and chlorophyll and all the amazing things that create health. So I think that, Karina, food is absolutely the first thing that I address with all of our clients. So while they might already have an optimal diet, we're still going to look at, okay, where else can we improve, if any, and maybe just a relationship with what we're having. But I think that before we do anything else, food has to be the first thing, because most of us eat at least 3 to 5 times a day. It's kind of like saying, how important is gasoline to a car? No gasoline, no car, or bad gasoline, no car. And so I think that it is the most important foundational block is food source, because it literally helps you to create every cell in your body, the skin, the eyes, the hair, everything that you have. So it's a building block. To neglect it is to neglect your future.
Yeah. And it's something, I think it's such a great starting point for health, like creating healthy habits, because it's something so practical and something that is like necessary every day. Like it is already a part of the day. You just need to make a different connection and create a different habit around it.
Yeah. And I love that point. I was speaking, the woman I just spoke with, she's a pharmacist. She said, okay, Elena, if I were to work with you, how much time do I need? I said, well, do you already cook? She said, yeah. I'm like, okay, great. We'll change that. So yes, there's a learning curve. For all of it. And it mostly goes because we need to rewire our brain, how we relate to things, but it's already what you're doing. So it's not hard. And I actually think that the easiest thing that I've ever done in my life is to go plant-based, because now I don't have to overthink it. My fast food is available all the time. The apples, the bananas, the cucumbers, the soups. I love soups. Take me like 30 minutes to make, and they can last over a week in the fridge. Like this.
I love that you call that fast food.
Yes.
Because we usually have a different connection with fast food, right?
Well, it can be faster than running into a store, getting an apple. You don't even have to wait in line at McDonald's.
Right.
Yeah, for me, it's my daughter says, Mommy, I'm hungry. I'm like, great. We have a fruit basket. It's 3-tier, very huge one in the kitchen. I'm like, you know where to go, you know what to do. So at 6, she already knows this is the source of her life. And I think that a lot of people, when I hear words like it's hard, well, Karina, if somebody needs to try to be sick like you were and I was, that's what's hard. Eating a healthy diet is the easiest, most natural, intuitive thing there is in the world if you let it be.
Yeah, absolutely. And so let's get back a little bit to the hormones and the thyroid issues or the autoimmune diseases. And what would be the like, I think we already talked quite a bit about it, but what would be the back practices to really, like cure these conditions or heal those conditions?
So I'm going to get us practical. This way, I usually get this way only with my clients, but I think your audience deserves the best possible picture of how this could work. So first thing that we'll look at is everything that I mentioned earlier. So let's evaluate your life. Once we know what is broken, then we're going to start fixing it. The most important thing goes into a diet. So for me, here's what I found. whole foods, plant-based, low-fat diet is the best way to go. Now, vegan is great. I love it. I am vegan, save in occasional, a little bit of honey. But outside of that, by default, because I was so selfish to save my life, now I have saved thousands of animals' lives.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's a big thing. Now, my clients, when I talk to them, I come from a perspective of there's amazing teachers like T. Colin Campbell, Caldwell Esselstyn, and the likes. So we know scientifically if your animal protein intake is about 5% or less, you can still get away with it. But here's what I found. When I give my clients the permission to have that in their diet, they go, oh, I don't really need it. So we create this accidental plant-based eaters who now say, for selfish reasons, we had unselfishly saved this world also from being in the suffering. So it really is a beautiful thing, because I think where we missed out before I became vegan, I was not a vegan. I was like, oh my God, let's save animals. I grew up in a place where we raised and butchered our own animals. So for me,
wow.
association was it is our food. It's like, I did not think, oh my God, it's a pet. It just never crossed my mind. And not because I was evil, but because when you're raised and conditioned, that's how you think.
Right.
But when I started thinking this way, I thought, what a better approach to teach people. Let's be selfish. The act of selfishness, which is actually just selffulness. So being aware and conscious of your eating creates the selfish act of kindness toward the planet and toward the animals. And so that is the first step that we take: whole foods, plant-based, low fat. And people go, oh my God, Elena, but what do I take? Do I take supplements? The soil is depleted. In America, it'd be absolutely impossible to have a deficiency from depleted soil, because we have produce shipped to us from all over the world in different regions, and different soils have different nutrient content. So we're pretty much safe. For the most part, then I move on to, is there a possible deficiency?
Yeah, that's the thing, and that's something that I think is really important to point out. Whenever you already have one of those autoimmune conditions or so, you are often already depleted. And so, is it, from your perspective, it's not only possible to just replenish it with the whole foods plant-based diet? Do you need to add up to even out the deficiencies first as well?
Yeah, great question. So I'm actually of the school of thought that 99% of the time the diet will take care of everything, because you just need to give it time. And I'm going to give you some shocking statistics here in a moment. But once in a while, so most people who come to me, they come from a carnivorous, omnivorous background. And most of them are B12 deficient. So there's a myth that vegans, they need B12. Well, the whole world's B12 is created in your gut. Right? If your gut is inflamed, there's nothing you're going to create. I don't care how many pounds of meat you eat, you're simply not going to be able to do it. The more meat you eat, actually, the less likely you're going to create a proper balance. So I, straight out of the gate, some methylated form of B12 is the best, because I actually had a deficiency in my pre-vegan days and I did not know about it. And I fell in within the normal acceptable ranges, but essentially it was B12 that allowed me to ovulate properly and have my baby, because I already ate whole foods, plant-based, and I took small dosages of B12, which were not helpful. Once I went to mega doses for a little while, I got my baby within a month. So with that, so we'll look at that. And then another thing that I also look immediately, Karina, is your gut health. Because the gut, when there's a lot of inflammation, you can eat the best of foods, and the foods with time will calm your stomach down. And thankfully, we regenerate our stomach lining every 5 days. So it's really easy to do it. But I find that the medicine, the bad food, everything that we're using right now is killing the good gut bacteria. So a good quality probiotic, and we do it specific to the person, because there are different people going through different things, that what's good for you is going to tear somebody else's stomach. So, but a good probiotic, that's pretty much the only 2 supplements for the most part that my clients will take. But once in a while, there could be something like there's a huge magnesium deficiency, and the magnesium will come from food. But to catch up on it, because it's responsible for the quality of your sleep, how you recover after workouts. Some of my clients might use a little bit of that topically, never, ever internally. So, and I emphasize that, because when there's already inflammation in your body, everything that you put inside is just going to go to waste anyway. Plus, things like magnesium and others can be harmful internally. The rest of it is really lifestyle. So vitamin D, get out in the sun. I don't care about the vitamin D2 or D3 or K or whatever else that you need to take with it. It's really, I can show you science right now upon science that says that we don't really need as much as we've been sold. A lie that we need, levels should be 50. the association, oh my god, is I'm trying to blink, but I can give you a link to that if you need it. So there's the Internal Medicine, I think, Association or something like that. They did a study on this about a decade or two ago, when they decided that the vitamin D level of 20 or just right under is about all you need. And then everybody's like, okay, that's a minimum. And then they redid it recently and they said it can be as low as 12 and a half and you still can be fine. Now that is a far cry from what your doctor is going to tell you, 50 or 70. By the time you're there, you're over saturated with vitamin D that comes from supplements. So you can actually lead yourself to hardened arteries and extreme thirst and other things, bone fractures. So too much of something that's supposed to be good is not good. So outside of that, when it comes to deficiencies, I believe that we are fully able to do it naturally. I've been doing this for over 10 years. And right now my clients get better within about 4 to 8 weeks after years and years of suffering. So that's how fast your body can replenish from whole foods plant-based diet, because it's a pretty smart, shell that we're wearing here. And it knows if you put a leaf of lettuce inside, it's going to tear it up into small pieces. It's going to get the protein from it, so different essential amino acids. It's going to get the vitamins from there and minerals from there. And it doesn't really need your help to put a vitamin in there extracted, because it goes like, okay, what do you do with it full? Now this says, oh, now I know, because this is a harmony. This thing works together. Now I can tear it up, put it together. At any given time right now, Karina, we're creating thousands and tens of thousands of different protein combinations. And yours will be different from mine. Mm-hmm. So I think the beauty of this lifestyle is that we actually can retire our self-prescription paths, where we go and have a pantry full of supplements. I'm guilty. I did that. Some of my supplements cost me upward of $200 a bottle. Done it. And then we also can retire a lot of medications. Most of my clients within a few weeks start improving. Thyroid, autoimmune conditions, and their doctors, oh, let's start cutting it down. Now, the only thing I add to that with autoimmune conditions when it comes to diet specifically is my clients will avoid all dairy. All of them will. But when it comes to modifications, anybody has an autoimmune condition, they will avoid gluten altogether. Mm-hmm. So I'm not one of those people that runs around and says, oh my God, everybody needs to be gluten-free. I don't believe that. And I also believe that quality of gluten in America is just really bad. But only the people with autoimmune conditions. And it just only because the gluten protein is just hard to digest when your stomach is just torn up from years and years of abuse. Mm-hmm. And we've seen some of our clients get to a point where they are better, especially if they travel to Europe. All of a sudden, gluten is no longer a problem. Mm-hmm. But we don't cross there until they're ready.
Yeah, it's so interesting that you say that, because I had the same experience. Like I had to cut it out for a couple of years out of my diet, and I have now, I began to reintroduce it back. I'm not going overboard, but it's not affecting me in any way or form.
Yeah, and what you've done, so I love part of the work I do, and this is in the book I'm writing right now, is epigenetic regeneration. Epigenetically, that means above your genes, right? Because we believed there was the Human Genome Project, which was a huge failure, where believed that it's in your DNA, you just cannot change it, you're sick because your ancestors are sick and your parents and all. And now we know that epigenetically, through diet and lifestyle, we can absolutely just overwrite your DNA, create a whole new DNA set. Yes, you're going to look like your mama and daddy, but it doesn't mean that you're going to die like them. Mm-hmm. So if you had a gluten intolerance, I do see that often, but it doesn't mean that you have to die with never eating a piece of bread. It means you just need to give your body time and then choose the best sources. And I think what you said is the best thing is don't go overboard. Don't go overboard with anything. I'm not going to sit here and eat spinach every day either. I'm going to rotate it with lettuce and beet greens and other things. Rotation is the queen of everything. Mm.
Mm. Awesome. Wonderful. And so you're actually saying that there's so many different expressions of autoimmune diseases. Mm-hmm. And what are really so you can really bring it back to the similar or very similar steps to, begin to cure or heal them all with the same method.
You're right. I went on the rabbit trail and you caught me. I'm so glad you did. So first of all, the diet. So we addressed that. The deficiencies deficiencies, we address that. And the next thing is going to be stress.
Mm-hmm.
So stress is literally, we heard about it. Stress is a killer. It is a killer. And it doesn't kill overnight though. It can kill slowly because stress puts you in fight or flight. So one of the next things that we do once we address your diet and your deficiencies is we start looking at your lifestyle. And the lifestyle is the first thing that I do with the women I work with is, how do you relate to yourself? How do you see yourself? That's the first thing before we do anything else stress related, because the way you view yourself is going to tell me how you're allowed the world to treat you. So if you say I'm not worthy, this is what I'm going to do, you're always going to be in a back burner. One of the questions I ask women before they can ever work with me is, are you a priority in your life? If not, and they're not ready for it, I can't. There's no magic pill. There's no shortcut. So the next thing is start addressing relationships, starting with yourself. And this is where the senses, you engage your senses and you start speaking to yourself differently. Hey, Karina, you gorgeous beast. You are absolutely awesome and you're amazing. And you look in the mirror and you admire every nook and cranny of your body and go, you're awesome. You're absolutely awesome. And the thought comes like, you're like, no, thank you. You served your purpose in the past, but right now, here's what I'm going to tell you. I am healed. I'm whole. With every bite that I take, I accept healing into my body. So then the expectation brings this moment. If the body relaxes and all the good food that you're bringing in can now start doing their job. And then we move on to stressors in life, the work stress, the financial stress, right? Stress is really not what is happening to us. It's how we respond to what's happening to us.
Yeah, I love that.
Right? So I actually have clients. Some of them will be in similar situation. One is chill as a cucumber. The other one goes, oh my God, the sky is falling. So one will get sick in the midst of being stressed. The other one, same stress levels from outside, but the self-perception is different and she'll walk away unscathed. So we start looking at, one of the things I do is have women list all of their stressors. And then I say, okay, take a red pen and you're going to cross off anything off that list that is not there because it's needed to be there. So for example, you might have an expectation from your mother on how a woman should look or what she should do around the house. And your whole life, you're pushing yourself to become that, mommy's girl who fits that mold. And inside you're like, no, I want to go, surfing, or I want to homeschool my kids and my mom does not approve it. This is the moment when you decide to start living in peace with yourself. You say, oh, I no longer need to live to somebody's expectation. I get to create my definition of what a woman is or a man, of what I need to do. And that takes stress down because all of a sudden you are congruent to your own self. We call that self-fullness. So you get to feel yourself with your senses. And you wake up in the morning, Karina, and you actually say, hey, girl, what do you feel like doing today? What do you feel like feeling today? How about we cancel everything in our schedule and everybody's going to think you're a crazy woman because you're so successful. But right now you're just going to go for a walk, barefoot, connect to nature, right? If that's what you love, great. I like being barefoot, but that's my thing. Yeah. But it is the next big thing. So stress is a huge thing. The moment you stop stressing, the diet is doing its job. If you take a couple of supplements that will do its job, all of a sudden you're sleeping at night. Because the lack of sleep, that's the next step in curing your hormone imbalances and immune conditions. You need to regenerate. And if you are, the woman I spoke with today, she said, I used to sleep 6 to 7 hours and I was rested, and now 10 hours are not doing it for me. Well, when that happens, you're generating sick cells. So you're copying, and each copy of the previous cell becomes sicker and sicker. So you're getting sicker. So with rest, what we're doing is doing the opposite. The stomach lying in 5 days, boom, you got a new one. What do you do with that, right? And that's why we see tremendous outcomes. 3 to 5 weeks. Right now, I have a woman work with me for 10 weeks, and she's symptom-free. She came to me with over 30 symptoms.
Wow.
How's that?
Powerful.
Yeah, but here's what we did work. Once we worked on the stress and all, we got to, what is your trauma? And she had childhood trauma. She was abandoned. She was in foster care. She had to fear for her life. And she wrote a story in her body, in her mind, that somehow she's not good enough. She's not lovely enough. She's not lovable, even though she has people in her life who are loving her. And she realized that was a story she created to protect herself. And once we started recreating this story, the symptoms started going away. She was working with a naturopath, and she's like, no, we got you tested. You're ready to cut down your thyroid medication now. And that's very powerful. That comes from healing that trauma. And trauma, most of us carry trauma, right? That's the next step to healing it. So once you deal with your story and the stress, the truth is, what are you carrying in your body? Like I said, we actually know now scientifically, you're thinking about 60 to 90,000 thoughts a day. And 80 plus of those percent are redundant from year to year. So what we're doing is we're thinking about our future and then spend most of our time in our past and our thoughts. So the body is never in the present moment. That's where we're broken down. So we create a process with our women too. It's meditative process. So whether you believe like in deep meditation, or if you're a religious person or a person of faith and you want to do it through Bible reading and prayer, that's working too. But for us, meditation is becoming aware of your thoughts as they happen. So you don't have to sit down for an hour and go, You literally meditate right in the moment, like, okay, what thought crossed my mind? Why did it do it? How do I stop it? Is it serving me? And what we do is we start creating new thought processes. Karina, gluten-free, that's the thing of the past now. Your body is capable of healing, and we're going to give it time. But when the time is right, you girl are going to be able to eat whatever you want. So that's the conversation my clients will start having within themselves. The body responds to it. So the medical industry will think of us as, you're a collection of different body organs and you really can function without them, right? Ovaries, especially women, guys, if you're listening, you're not subject to that. Well, nobody says like, oh, you don't need testicles. You don't need your penis. Let's cut it off. Women go through it all the time. Oh, you mean to tell me you have polycystic ovarian syndrome? We don't know how to treat it, so let's cut out your ovaries. Maybe that goes away. Or you have endometriosis right on your uterus. Let's just cut that out because we don't know how to fix it. Or, Karina, you're done having babies. You don't really need it, right? Let's cut it out. Well, those body organs produce hormones for the rest of your life. Scientifically speaking, women, if you go through hysterectomy and you get to keep your ovaries versus not keeping your ovaries, you can extend your lifespan by almost 8 to 10 years if you keep your ovaries.
Wow.
Right? So we bring it back. We're saying you're not a body shop of spare body parts. You need every single organ. And what we're going to do is we're going to work on it. And I know you probably have listeners go say, Elena, but I already had a hysterectomy or a thyroidectomy. The body is an amazing thing. The body, when it perceives there's an injury, your brain rewires itself. And if we give you proper nutrition, you might not grow the body part back, but your body can reposition itself to still give you a near symptom or a symptom-free life. So the body is amazing. So we treat it as a whole, but trauma from the past is connected to how your organs operate. So I used to think, Karina, all of this was woo-woo stuff. I was very factual. My background is physics and engineering. So you imagine how I think, right? And when you start telling me about, if you suppress your truth and if you don't speak it, and if you feel that the world is not hearing you, your thyroid will be affected. I'd be like, you fool. And what does that? But we actually start seeing a lot of people with autoimmune conditions, for example, are people who had a traumatic past. And what happens? So it's not always so. I'm not saying 100%. I'm saying a lot of people. I want to draw the difference here. And the body starts attacking itself. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, and I think it's really important as well to see and to differentiate that trauma is experienced in such a different way to different people. And even just the smallest thing can be a trauma to someone else who, for someone else, it would be not a big deal at all. Right? It could just be like a phrase, a word, or something that someone had said to them or so, and it just got
a trigger. Absolutely. Right. My husband, he was given up for adoption. He was never officially adopted. He was raised by a family that physically abused him. And he has trigger words. And my family was nothing. I had the best upbringing in the world. So some things I would say in jest and he would be triggered. And all of a sudden he's emotionally distraught. I'm like, what is going on? But those are the trigger words, and we do process life differently. And with autoimmunity, we see that when you attack yourself long enough, the body will start attacking its own cells as well.
Yeah, I like that analogy that you just made that. Because what is it? Like, what is an autoimmune disease, right?
Yeah. Autoimmune disease is when your body will attack itself. So sometimes it can be so, for example, now there's a big thing going on about root canals, and if there's bacteria and the body goes attacking it, eventually starts attacking yourself. But even with your thoughts and trauma, you keep saying, you're horrible, you're fat, you're not lovable. I hear this every day from women. You're not lovable. You're never good enough. You're not pretty enough. You're not smart enough. And the body eventually says, okay, I agree with you, girlfriend. Let's go. You're not good enough, one cell to the other. You're not. So the immune system turns on itself. Now, is this 100% no? There are other causes for autoimmune triggers. There could be toxicity. There could be other things, metal toxicity, heavy metal toxicity, environmental toxicity. It could be a lot of things. But a lot of the times we do see that connection with women is that speech to yourself about yourself will also determine how the cells of the body speak to each other.
Wonderful. Awesome. I think that's wonderful insight. And I think, I would like to know, like, how can people connect more deeply with you? Where do they find you? How can they work with you?
Absolutely. And thank you for that. So I can be found very easily. I'm very Googleable, if that's a word. But if you go to 360impacthealth.com, that is my website. I had filled it with information that allowed me to heal myself. There are free trainings there. So there are training on how to address hormonal imbalances and thyroid issues. And I do have a gift for your audience too.
Awesome.
That's something that I don't give to anyone unless I speak somewhere, and that is the only time I share that gift.
Awesome.
But those are that I'm basically on Facebook. We have Facebook groups that are there to support women going through this. Whether they work with me or not is, up to them, but the information is still there. The women who work with me actually take on a limited number of clients because I give them this focus. We need to work through everything, but that they'll go through those trainings just to see if that's the thing that they need. And then they can reach out. And of course, I'm working on a book right now. I'm setting to get it published by the end of this year, where I'm going to talk about a lot of these things that we touched on in that essential healing. And essential is about involving all of your being. Like we just talked into the healing process, not just like, oh my God, do I eat keto, or do I eat vegan keto, or do we eat, whatever else? Those are the surface things. We need to go deeper into our healing. So yeah, and I do have a gift for your audience.
Yes, share it.
So you have the link. I'm sure you're going to have the link, but it is something that I wrote when I was going through my extensive training in hormone health, specifically on female hormones. And this is while I was already working with women for many, many years.
Oh, are you still there? Are you there?
Am I back in?
Oh, no, there you go.
It looks like we flickered. So when I was going through my training, I wrote a guide it's called From the Womb to the Tomb. It's a woman's guide to health from the moment you are conceived to the moment you die. And I touch on a lot of these things, and I do go very practical about what supplement might you need to take if you have ovulation problems, or what you really know about mammograms or other things. So again, I say, this is a very exclusive gift. It's not anywhere on my website. Your listeners will have a special link to click on it, and they'll have it. And it can be a huge eye opener. It's everything that helped me to heal myself completely, and now thousands of other women. This is basically like cliff notes of what we do.
Wow, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing it with us.
It's my pleasure.
Yes, and so my last final question for this interview is definitely, as you're working in the field of change and having a great and positive impact on the world, what is your personal message of hope to the audience?
I love it. So my personal message is there is nothing, absolutely nothing that is incurable. And one of the things that this is where I fight, and I know we will change it one day. Right now, the medical industry says that people like me, we cannot say words like heal or cure. And certainly I'm never allowed to make a promise, but here's my promise to everybody, that the tools that you can get for yourself is you do the healing, you do the curing, nobody else can do it for you. So my big message is, if you and I, Karina, can reverse something that was incurable, a pituitary tumor in my head, and we can get rid of that, what do you think humanly we're capable of? So I believe that we're only sometimes a decision away, a meal away, a thought away from our perfect health. And it is my goal to eradicate autoimmune conditions, hormone imbalances off the face of the earth, but by empowering women like you and I to do it on their own. So my big message is, don't give up. You have all the power that you need within you to regenerate your every single cell in the body. And you're going to be that anomaly that your doctors will go, oh my God, let me study you. So before we say, is it really scientifically proven, we need to create enough cases for science to come and study us, because science is just an observation of what already happens. So my big message is, you can do it. If I can do it, if Karina could do it, you ladies and gentlemen can do it. You have the power in your hands, in your thoughts, in your minds to absolutely heal yourself of anything.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Elena, so much for being part of the series and sharing your wisdom, your knowledge, and insight. And yeah, thank you all for watching and joining us. And please, please, please stay tuned for more incredible content on how to eat to improve your health, empower your spirit, and thrive with the planet. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.